Okay, so today I'm going to be reviewing this book, Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is an adult memoir, and this is actually the first book that I read in the month of May. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys because I have a plan to review every single book that I read in May. So let's see how we go. On to the all-important stats. Let's start with the fact that this Eat, Pray, Love is written by Elizabeth Gilbert. It is an adult book and it's an adult memoir. Adult book, don't think there's much to say there other than age ranges when it comes to marketing of a book is more of a suggested age or level of maturity that you should be at to read a book. It's an adult book, so it's written for adults, but it doesn't mean that kids can't read it. A memoir, as opposed to a biography, a memoir is selected events that happened in someone's life being written about, as opposed to a biography, which is a discussion of the main points of everything that happened in someone's life. In this book, we follow Elizabeth Gilbert. It's a non-fiction, if you can believe it. Like, I don't read a lot of non-fiction, but we're following Elizabeth in this book, and at the beginning of this book, she's having a very, very tough time. Life is not working out the way that she would want it to be, and she's just really struggling on the floor of her bathroom, sobbing. She's just so overwhelmed, nothing's worked out, and that she's just not enjoying her life, how it is at the moment. She's married, but she feels like she's in a loveless marriage. So ultimately, she ends up getting up off that floor and divorcing the guy that she's married to, and then she goes on a pursuit of happiness. She travels from the US, where she lives, to 3 separate areas. She goes to Rome to start with, then she goes to India, and then she goes to Indonesia. The reason why it's called Eat, Pray, Love is because each of these words represents the overall banner of what her experience was about in those areas. So she starts off in Rome, and we have the word eat because while she's in Rome, she enjoys the food. There's more to the story than that, but one of the biggest takeaways is that she enjoys the food. Then we get to pray. She goes over to India, and she goes to an ashram, which is kind of like a temple in India, and she does a ton of praying. And as for love, she then goes over to Indonesia, and while she went to India to pray, so she knew that's what she was doing. She didn't necessarily go to Indonesia to find love or to experience any type of love, but that's what ultimately ended up happening. She ultimately ends up experiencing love and what love is about, so that's why we have the word love there. Now I'm going to take a quick look at the blurb on the back and see if it holds up. It's 3 a.m. and Elizabeth Gilbert is sobbing on the bathroom floor. She's in her 30s, she has a husband, a house, they're trying for a baby, and she doesn't want any of it. A bitter divorce and a turbulent love affair later, she emerges battered and bewildered and realizes it is time to pursue her own journey in search of 3 things she has been missing: pleasure, devotion, and balance. She travels to Rome, where she learns Italian from handsome brown-eyed identical twins and gains 25 pounds, to an ashram in India, where she finds that enlightenment entails getting up in the middle of the night to scrub the temple floor, and to Bali, where a toothless medicine man of indeterminate age, offers her a new path to peace. Simply sit still and smile, and slowly happiness begins to creep up on her. I feel like the blurb gives way too much away with this one. While I cannot say that it's false advertising because everything that's written in the blurb actually does occur, which is not always the case, but in this case, yes, it is a very accurate portrayal of the book. I feel like this is one of those situations where it's giving away way too much of the book. So there you go. But these days, Mr. Francy doesn't read blurbs on the back of his books because I don't want to be spoiled at all. So I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this book. My only criticism, well, actually I have 2, but I want to say this so that you guys are aware of it in case you're considering reading this book. In a very, very, very small section of the book, Elizabeth meets a guy, and I believe his name is Uday. I had a personal issue with her relationship with Uday. And the reason why I had an issue with it personally is because they used the word homo with each other. And I don't remember what the book was, but there's a book that I've read somewhere between January of 2020 and now. Characters would say this line to each other, no homo. And if you know what book this is, please let me know, because I've read so many, I don't remember which one it is. But we would have these situations with these friends, and they would say, you know, we should go off and do this, no homo. And the other one goes, yeah, no homo. And I just felt like it wasn't necessary. It was just a derogatory way to use that word. We have a similar situation in this book. The word homo is used not directly to describe someone who is gay, but rather as I guess a put down. And that has just always irked me, that people say the word gay in place of saying something that they don't like. So instead of saying, I don't like this, there are people out there, unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, just personal opinion, who will say, oh, that's gay. And it's, I don't like it. So this is not a massive part of the book. I really had to think of cons for this book, and it doesn't last that long. Her friendship with Uday lasts for a little while, but the word homo might come up about 6 to 8 times in the book, and every time it's used, it seems to be used in a derogatory sense. And yet they're not discussing anything to do with anyone who's a homosexual, you know, who's gay or whatever, which is what homo is simplified for. In this situation, they are shortening the term homosexual. I just did not appreciate that. That kind of turned me off, to be honest, because it was mentioned, as I said, somewhere between 6 to 8 times, and I did not like that. My second issue with this book, and I only have 2, my second con with this book is that the conclusion of this book is stretched out too far for my liking. It took so long, like 20-30 pages, to say they all lived happily ever after, and it wasn't an epilogue. If it was an epilogue, I would understand, but it was a standard chapter that just went on and on and on, way too long for me, when they could have just shortened it down and said, and I lived happily ever after. But anyway, but other than that, I loved everything else about this book, and that's why I'm not going to budge from the 5-star rating that I gave it. Now, if you have read this book, join me in just a moment. We're going to do the spoiler section where I get to actually, you know, talk about things in a spoilery way. But if you have not read this book, I completely understand if this is where you're going to leave it. My recommendation is, if you like memoirs, then you will at least appreciate this book because it is a memoir. If you like self-help books, I think you'll appreciate this book because the reader can indirectly learn things that from what Elizabeth Gilbert has experienced. I also think if you love world travel, the fact that we go from America to Rome to America to Rome to India and then to Indonesia, I think is done really well. The culture is very well fleshed out in this book, and I appreciated that as well. I had a great time with it. If any of this is something that you know, makes you want to consider reading this book, then I do recommend it. Because the word pray is in this book, I don't think I need to mention this, but I will. God is brought up, and things like that, like God and enlightenment and meditation and those sorts of things, particularly in the pray section of the book when she is in India. If this is something that you don't want to read about, or it triggers you, or if God or meditation or praying is just something that you want to avoid, fair enough. Everyone has their own things they like or don't like. Then I would say maybe this is not the book for you, because there's a lot of stuff discussed about meditation, prayer, going off to a higher dimensional level, things like that. And so if that's not for you, maybe this book is not the right book for you. But as far as I was concerned, I really enjoyed my read with this book. It was my mother who asked me to read it, because ever since she read it, which I think the first time she read it was years and years ago, but ever since then she's been talking constantly to me about the book and the adaptation, the film adaptation, which she did not like at all, the film adaptation, but she loved the book. So I finally said to her, okay, I'll read it in May, and I did, and I loved it. So, yeah, I thought it was amazing. Let me know what you thought if you've read it already, but if you pick up a copy of this book thanks to my recommendation, let me know what you thought of it. We're now going to jump into the spoiler section because this has taken way too long to get through, and I need to talk to you guys about some spoilery stuff. Spoiler section. If you have not read this book, you have been warned. I'm jumping into spoilers right now. To make this easier on me and you guys and time-wise, I'm going to divide this spoiler section into 3 sections, the 3 headings on this book. So we're going to have the eat section, the praise section, and the love section. First of all, let's talk about the eat section and, of course, the setup that we have to get Elizabeth Gilbert from America into Rome. So I'm talking about this, and by setup I mean her on the bathroom floor crying and all that kind of stuff, because my mother, in a spoiler-free way, had told me of one thing that she found so extremely disappointing about the film adaptation. A little spoiler here for you guys about that. My mother is completely unsatisfied with the film adaptation. I have not seen the film adaptation yet. If I end up seeing it at some point between now and my monthly wrap, then I might comment on the differences between the two. But for now, I've only just read the book. So she's disappointed because apparently in the film adaptation we don't have that whole scene where Elizabeth is crying on the bathroom floor, which my mother articulated incredibly well is the major setup for the whole book, and she's absolutely right. The reason why Elizabeth Gilbert was so motivated to go to Rome and India and Indonesia is because she wanted to turn her life around, because she hit the lowest of low points. If you're going to have it in the film that she's not on the bathroom floor crying and all that, then I wonder how it is set up. Maybe it just looks like she randomly went away on a holiday, which is completely different to why she's gone away on the holiday in this book. So if you're going to change the setup, I don't know if I'm going to like that, honestly. So I can see where my mother's coming from. As far as that scene is concerned, very, very important. I'm glad that it was there. I felt that it kind of went on a bit too long, especially when Elizabeth is talking about her husband and the whole divorce process and how long the court case was taking and to get everything done. While I understand that this is definitely, like, court cases, especially with divorce and all that, can take a long time to sort everything out, I just felt like it slowed the pace down quite a lot. I do appreciate the scene she had with her friend in the car and that whole list. Oh my god, I need to put the book down because I'm getting excited now. That whole list that her friend came up with saying, okay, imagine you've written a petition to God and everyone you're thinking of, if they're alive or dead, they've signed it already. I loved that. And she's naming all these people, like, you know, Mel Gibson, okay, he signed it. And I just love that. And then suddenly, you know, the person, her attorney calls and the ex has signed the papers now, and I thought that was really well done. Let's move over to Rome. So she finally can go on this pursuit of happiness tour, for lack of a better word. She goes over to Rome, and the reason why she wants to go to Italy in the first place is because she wants to learn Italian. She thinks Italian is the most beautiful of all the languages out there. Personally, I don't so much disagree, but I haven't ever spent time trying to learn Italian, so that might be, you know, maybe I'm just not worldly enough to know this. I feel like French is probably the most beautiful language, but, you know, she was inspired to go over to Italy to learn the language while she's in Italy from Italians. So that was good, and I appreciated that. But more than that, to be honest, I appreciated that they didn't call the first word in this book language. Language, pray, love. They called it eat, pray, love, because of the fact that she ends up loving all the pasta that she's eating and all this kind of stuff. I just thought that was amazing. Pasta is my favorite food of all time, so I know personally for me, if I were to go over to Italy, that will be one of the first things I want to do is eat pizza and pasta and, you know, try them out from the country that they originated from. So I enjoyed living vicariously through Elizabeth as she was doing this. I think the cultural aspects of Italy were done incredibly well. Just little things that you learn here and there from people who speak to Elizabeth saying, you know, over here, this is just the way that it is. It might not be the same in America, but we look at life this way. And then obviously she ends up going over to India, where she goes to the ashram, however you say it, and she starts that whole praying thing. Look, I not only was I fine with this, but I actually enjoyed reading the whole ashram experience that she had. And if anything, it could motivate me to go there and experience that for myself. Just the idea of everything being about meditation and connecting with a higher being, whatever that may be. And I do appreciate that Elizabeth Gilbert isn't so quick to just say God. Like, she will very much say, God, or this type of God, or that goddess, or whatever. She's very much happy to be all inclusive with religion. But yeah, I really appreciated her time being over there and everything that she went through when she was locked in her room by the roommate. What the heck? I still don't understand what was going on there, because all we really know is that it was very much a plot convenience, even though it's a non-fiction. But she goes to the door is locked, she has minutes to get to this ritual that she doesn't like to do anyway, so she decides to just jump out the window despite the fact that she's 2 floors up, because nothing else matters other than getting there. So she jumps out the window, scrapes her knee, and just ends up going to the ritual and doing the ritual. And I get that, she should make a point that the door was locked and that's why I had to jump out the window, but I couldn't help but think, after she jumped out the window, who locked the door and why? And she's saying it was her roommate, but why did her roommate lock the door? It doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, I enjoyed her time at the ashram. I just thought, yeah, a great experience for her. She went through a lot of different things and she was very, very honest, which I appreciated as well. So with things like that ceremony that takes an hour and a half or whatever to do, how she was saying, I'm so bored and I don't like it and I get really hot and agitated when this happens. And her friend who calls her groceries, I love him. He's like, well, maybe, you should be giving it a chance. Someone was saying, I don't remember exactly if it was groceries man, the guy that calls her groceries, or someone else, but someone was saying to her, if you're having such a big reaction, then obviously it's working, so you should keep at it. She has to scrub the floors and stuff afterwards, but I appreciate that. Everyone who stays there works there, so that just makes sense to me anyway. And then she finally leaves India and goes over to Indonesia to meet the medicine man guy. That whole storyline with the medicine man, Katut, or whatever his name was, gosh, I love that guy. He just made me so happy with so many things. But yeah, so a lot of love for him. And then obviously we get to that point where she meets the homeless person, and I fell for the ruse. If you've read the book, you know what I'm referring to, the ruse with the homeless person so much. When Elizabeth came up with the idea she's going to, send that email out to everyone saying, instead of getting me a gift for my birthday and, paying all this extra money if you're going to fly out here or whatever, just, make a donation towards this fund that I'm trying to create because I want to get them a home. I was so touched by this. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful that she wants to help them. And the story about the daughter and the blue tile was just so cute. And just, it worked on so many levels. And then when the Felipe, or however you pronounce his name, the guy that she ends up, being with at the end, is saying to her, you should be really careful and make sure she actually buys this house, because, there are people out here who are known for taking people for a ride, so, and it's not just your money, other people put money in as well, so, make sure that she does, because she might just try and take that money and use it for other things. So, of course, we go through that whole thing, and I did feel like the rug was taken out from under me, as Elizabeth did as well, with that whole situation. I was not expecting that. But fortunately, Elizabeth had no problem just having a chat with this lady and just, putting her foot down and saying, no, you need to find a house now. People have paid this money. I'm leaving soon. They need to see that you've done what we said we were going to do. And eventually that ended up being fixed up. So I really did appreciate that. It left me with a really weird feeling, as I'm sure it probably did Elizabeth a little bit. The fact that she kind of had to... Must you be a pest? But so I really appreciated Elizabeth putting her foot down with that. And so then we resolved that, because It was more out of fear, like if I don't buy this house, I'm going to lose this money, because of course Elizabeth says, even though she can't do this, she makes the point to this lady saying, I can take the money back, so we have to do this, you know. But then that kind of got resolved anyway, even though it was out of fear, which left me with a weird feeling, I will say, because I would much rather Elizabeth be able to just take the money back and leave. But anyway, that whole thing was just weird. But it was resolved. And then, as I said in the spoiler-free section, everything from the point where the lady had bought the house and that was resolved onwards, I felt like that was stretched out far too much and it didn't need to be. I felt like she could have just grabbed Philippe, they could have gone to this other island, you know, now we're over on the island and we're good, the end. Overall, I love this book and I end up giving it 5 stars, aside from those 2 little complaints that I had. I'm so glad I read it. I resonated with like 98% of the book, and in as far as if it's something that she's experiencing that's new for her, I could appreciate how she was feeling as she went through everything, or other things if I have experienced certain things and whatever. But I really enjoyed this and I do recommend it. I want to be very careful when I go about recommending this book, despite the fact that it is incredibly popular and has been placed on a ton of, you know, famous people's book club lists, and that it's been adapted into a movie, which only happens with successful books, so I get that it's well known. The only thing that makes me consider whether or not I should say, yes, go and get it, is the middle of the book, the pray section of the book. Because if that's just not your thing, then you may end up not liking the book because you're not into praying and meditating and stuff. You might be skipping an entire third of the book because of it. So just do be mindful of that. And the fact that the conclusion to me kind of stretches out a bit. But other than that, I really thought this was a fantastically amazing book, and I end up giving it 5 stars. So I do recommend it with the provisos I've already put in place. If you've read this book already, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. If you pick it up based on my recommendation, let me know that you did. I'd love to chat with you about it before you read it and how you felt afterwards. But that is where I am going to leave it for this review of Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. Letting you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading!